Alright. See now. We is live, people. We is live. Allahu Akbar. عفوا للتأخير. Alright, دعنا نبدأ. Let me just share this out there. Whew. The weather, people, the weather. Alright. I'm just sharing this. Right. Esperame, por favor. Right, there it is. Alright, people. Click that share button. Get this out there, people. Alright. Wow, why is this phone going slow now? Is this some kind of alright, almost done. Almost done, people. Alright. I'm just sharing this one moment. Come on, goddammit. See, this is the the frustration of our age when when the phones don't respond. Come on. You're gonna get some. If I wasn't live, I'd be running a different commentary here now. Oh, come on. This is taking the mic now. Ah, yes, salam. That's better. That's better. That's better. Come on, come on, come on. Haven't got all day here. Wow, that's probably like the longest it's ever taken me to. Hopefully that's done. Right, so how are you all doing, people? How are you all doing? Inna alhamdulillah wa kafah. والصلاة والسلام على رسوله المصطفى وعلى عباده الذين ارتضى ومن بهداهم اهتدى وبآثار أهل المدينة اقتفى وبعد فسلام الله على القوم أهلا وسهلا بكم مرحبا حنين Layth bienvenidos a todos بخير راغلي and people swagatam swagatam. Right, Sunni defense. Yes, I will be coming to them, to our good friend a little later on. Let's begin, first of all, begin with on a positive note, not beginning with Wahhabi haters and blasphemers. These people we come to afterwards. We need to first of all begin with the love. What's going down, people? What? Wow, so much has been going on. Let me just take a sip. Wah. Wah. That's what I'm talking about, people. Ice, chilled, cold, heat. Wah. पानी से प्यास ना बुझी तो मैं खाने की तरफ चल निकला. वाह 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 वाह. I was saying actually the other day, I'd asked somebody to write that out for me in a calligraphic kind of style in Urdu. That पानी से प्यास ना बुझी, that my thirst wasn't quenched with water, to main khane ki taraf chal nikla. So I set off towards the wine house, the pub. So I asked somebody to write that out for me in a kind of calligraphic style if they could. And they wrote back in Urdu. They wrote, Pani se pyas na bujhi, to main khane ki taraf chal nikla. So like I set off to eat instead. Ya salam, ya salam. Hi. What's going down, people? What are we looking at? So much has been going on. I want to take some of the cute questions that have been submitted as well. Because people say, they say, yeah, you ask us to submit questions and you never answer them. That too is a ishtail. No, I want to answer some of them. So, you know, disculpa me, right? So my apologies, right? So what else? Well, this weekend we've had Sheikh Akram Nadwi. That's something I'd like to kind of mention, give a quick summary of how that went down. Some of the key points to transfer some of those gems to you people. Also some of the hype around that, we'll discuss that as well. And I saw today, disappointed, I had to, shall we begin with this, I saw this post, wait, I made a Facebook post on it actually. Somebody shared with me a kind of status of somebody, I don't know who he is, but as it transpires, obviously turned out to be right, so it turns out to be somebody having a go on Facebook. From the UK, by the name of Farouk ibn Qaisar or something, must be some fake name anyway, regardless, and somebody shared this with me and I had a read of it, and it said it was this person having a rant about football. Now, I myself do not watch football, right? I don't watch football. I just don't see any interest. For some reason, I just can't get interested in sport. So, but that aside, so this person's kind of having a go at England. Living in England, having a go at England. What is this? What? Now what to do? So let's take a look at Farouk ibn Qaisar. I love the Ibn, you know, the fake Arabs. I'm a fake Arab, you know, this one, I'm the Ibn. Acha. Right, so, forgive my crudity. Hey, rather. But anyone who says football is just a sport devoid of meaning is either a liar or a moron. A moron? Yes, a moron. It is clearly an indirect expression of an underlying reverence, right? Instinct suppressed by secular ideas, right? So that's what it is. So anybody who's into football, really, they're just brainwashed with the love of this world, and they've been conditioned that unite people on primitive bonds only to politically distract them from their miserable lives tainted by the ideological flaws in capitalism. Rather. Wait there, let's go on. To add any Muslim, one must add, quite prudently at this point, any Muslims who support England, whether as a joke or in seriousness, ought to seriously reevaluate what it means to do so, to align oneself with their enemy, is to betray the very cause our people work for. our people? Huh? Which people? Last time I checked, Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi wasn't our people. Right, so I don't know which one this fake Arab is referring to as our people. Your Honor, I do not know. Wait. Right, so insofar as it is a nation whose record is scarred with our blood and demise, if anything, check this out, we pray England reaches the final and loses. So it's weak and cowardly people feel a greater sense of inadequacy, twisting the blade in their declining state. What on earth is this guy on about? What on earth is this idiot on about? This guy, the only thing, best case scenario is that this guy is, he's kind of sectioned and he's undertaking psychiatric treatment. That's the best case scenario here. That this is somebody who's mentally unstable, but he managed to find his way to Facebook and make a post. Worst case scenario, Toba, Toba. We have the extremists on our hand. You know, the fake Arab, the these kind of people. Stay well away from them. Stay well away from these people. A cancer in the heart of the Ummah, and especially people in the West. Look, I don't even watch football. But, of course, may England win. Why not? It's where you live. You ought to love your land. You ought to be kind of proud. You ought to be, even if it means little to you, the sport, even if you're not into the sport, but still, unless you, I'm not saying you have to, you can support another group, you can support another team, there's nothing wrong with that, but to have an inherent hatred against the very land you live in, Ya Salam, these people, what are they doing here? My simple message to them is, first of all, stop those benefits. Stop. Can they stop claiming? All of these, I bet you, all of them, claiming benefits. Claiming benefits is scum. I'm going to sound like some of these right-wing kind of fascists now. But it's true. I bet you that claiming benefits, yeah, and then going on, oh, our enemy, our enemy. Our enemy. कोई खानदानी झगड़ा चल रहा है क्या? Is this what the hell is going on? Your dad, whoever you are, obviously must have come to this country for work. So behave. This is the kind of stuff that triggers hatred, racism. It triggers a divide, a dangerous divide, and a poison in the name of Islam. It triggers Islamophobia. So I saw that and I was disgusted. Honestly, I thought that, why don't you just get lost? Pack your bags and go. Ja Simran, ja. Ji le apni zindagi, ja. Go. Go to the land of milk and honey. Where is that, by the way? Pakistan. They'll be like, Nava Sonia. Don't worry. Don't worry, they'll have you baptized. I bet my puttar here hasn't even spent a week in Pakistan. If he does, don't worry. Toba, toba. He'll come back crying within. He thinks he's seen life difficult. He thinks he's seen people corrupt. Don't worry. Anyway, I thought I'll start christen and bless today's gathering with that rant out the way. So what else are we looking at? Of course, look, You ought to have a love for where you live. We need to now teach our youngsters to love their country. We ought to do this. And this is from your loyalty to this deen. That Islam is for everywhere, the whole world. And you know, this is so interesting. Sheikh Akram Nadwi, in this, yesterday, he did a Sahih Bukhari dars, an amazing dars, just touching up on some of the gems that he gave from in that dars. He mentioned amongst the, Sheikh Akram Nadwi, Dr. Akram Nadwi as well, yes. So one of the things he mentioned was this. He said that, look, Muslims in this country, they always go on about protests about other parts of the world. Palestine, Iraq, Syria, always. And yet they won't even know about their, let's say, non-Muslim neighbors and their suffering. He said that Muslims never come out, hardly you ever see them, about protests to do with this country. So his point was that, look, how do you think the non-Muslims feel? They feel that Muslims are just very incredibly sectarian. These were his words. That they don't see England or the UK as theirs. They're out in arms whenever something in Iraq is happening. Iraq, which is fine. It's not that that's a wrong concern. But the point is that it's always foreign. It's never about home. That they never come out kind of saying, well, what about the issues going on here? They don't even want to know. And you get, on the contrary, idiots like this saying, oh, these are the enemy, the enemy. Honestly, I don't even know how this country allows these. HT are, I tell you, a government conspiracy. How the government allows them to exist. But not just them, people like them as well. This disease. But what Sheikh Akram Nadwi was saying was that, look, why is it that Muslims are not, they need to be more concerned about what's happening here. Like Brexit. Muslims, all right, fine, some Muslims are concerned, but they're not up in arms, for example. Let's just say the politics going on here, they're not up in arms. Boris Johnson resigning, what's the house of card play going on? What is going on? What are the Muslims are like they act like this ain't our home. But they want to speak about only what's going on in Iraq or in Syria or in Palestine only. And that is wrong. So they ought to speak more so about here as well. And then there's no harm. Then you can speak about anywhere. You can speak about Yemen, Palestine, Syria, wherever you want. But be from where you are. You were born here, for God's sake. You've lived here all your life. So stop acting like an immigrant. So that's some point somebody has just come on and said, Shaitan, laugh. Right. Right, so somebody said that Salam from the Rochdale crew. Huh? Rochdale? Well, alaikum assalam. It's just Rochdale's got a bad name recently, so just in case I give the salam and it gets to the wrong gang. And they say, MashaAllah, Mufti Abu Layth's giving us salam. Alright, people. So what else were some gems? Gold. I've answered Qasim. I'm only kidding. No offense. No offense. Of course, much love for everybody, right? Whatever city they're from. And Allahu Akbar from the UAE. Ahlan wa sahlan wa marhaban bikum. Shafiq Kabuli has just tuned in to say, you anta majnoon ya akhi. Allah. See, look, etiquette. Not only am I mental, but he finished it off by saying, brother. Allah. He must have thought that because we're somehow, I don't know, maybe he thought I'm like a brother and this is hereditary, because the bachara must be mental as well. So he's thinking, oh, my brother, therefore you must have also inherited this. Wow, what a concern this ummah has. Hi. Kya? Wah. Anyway, let's move on to, yes, I was saying some of the, so Shaykh Akram Nadwi had an awesome kind of dars from Sahih Bukhari, and it was really fascinating to sit in. You know why? Because it's good to sometimes just sit and learn from somebody else. Let's see what they got to say, and you know, it's good sometimes. It's relaxing, slightly, you know, relaxing. So amazing dars. A lot of it was heavily concentrating on asanid, on the chains of narrators, going into the ikhtilaf, the criticism, Bukhari, Muslim, who they rely on, who are some of the problematic narrators. Once again, the two that are problematic, Al-A'mash and Qatada. Oh, the same two who transmit the hadith justifying marital rape. Those which the Wahhabi defense are trying to justify, and I'll come back to that. Shaykh Akram said the same thing, that these two narrators are problematic, but generally others less so. Really interesting. A lot of kalam, a lot of discussion on rijal, on the narrators, some fascinating points. I found that amazing, seriously. Another interesting thing was that I discussed with Shaykh Akram Nadwi as well, this whole understanding of, can we today prove Sahih Bukhari to be traced back to its author Imam Bukhari, alleged author Imam Bukhari. Fascinating discussion, and I have to say, and this is from the amazing kind of transparency of Shaykh Akram Nadwi, he said that this is indeed a fascinating challenge. He said that this is a challenge and it would require a lot of research. He definitely agreed that it is a substantial problem, that it's not a superficial matter. He agreed with that. I don't know if he obviously, you see, what is the outcome of saying something like this? My outcome of saying something like this, I think maybe he may agree with that. My outcome is that this means we ought to take whatever we read from Bukhari, stuff like this, with a pinch of salt, and we can take it, we can practice it, as long as these three factors, it doesn't go against reason, it doesn't clash with the major sources like the Quran and established Sunnah and through fiqh, and it doesn't uproot an Islamic principle. So I think he would agree. That part I didn't really ask him. What I did do was have a long discussion on, can we prove this? Can we confidently say? Because the question is this, folks. Imagine we're not talking about Islam for a moment. Imagine we weren't speaking about Islam. Imagine we were speaking about Christianity or something else. In that case, we would be very critical of these things. We would say, wait a minute. So, for example, the oldest copy of Bukhari that we have that is complete is at least 200 years after the Imam. Now that's an issue. The only real transmitter of Bukhari that we have, his student Farabri, Muhammad ibn Yusuf al-Farabri, the problem with him is nobody from the science of hadith in his time seems to recognize him. His first recognition, and what I mean by recognition is to say that he's okay in hadith. Nobody certifies him or vouches for him till at least 200 years after him. So that's so many generations. So people in his time never validate him. So, and he's the only transmitter, and that's only part of the problem. So I go on, and obviously, Shaykh Akram Nadwi agreed that these are substantial, these are true problems and issues that need to be kind of looked into. But that was amazing. Other than that, there was we discussed, I tried to live stream a certain section. Last Monday session, you started the miracle behind slaughter of Ibrahim alayhi salam, but did not complete it. Okay, I'll come to that in a moment. Right, those of you just tuning in, if you click like, click share, get this out there, folks. Another interesting point, and I'd like you to focus on this. I discussed this during the dars of Sheikh Akram Nadwi with him. I asked him as a question, the 12 Imams hadith. This is an interesting hadith because I've seen this being thrown around by a lot of people, by the Sunni and the Shia. So the Shia, I think, kind of lean in on it to validate their 12 Imams. And the Sunnis, it's in Sahih Bukhari that there will be 12 Khulafa from Quraysh. Now, I asked Sheikh Akram Nadwi, I said that, look, on the topic of doctored hadith that have been fabricated, as an example, I said, how about the topic of Khilafah? Because Khilafah, people, is a notion. It is a concept that did not exist in the time of the Prophet or in Arabia before the Prophet. So the Arabs never used to use words like Khalifa. Like, they had the Arabic word Khalifa, but it didn't mean what Khalifa means today. So for example, the Arabs would have had, like, let's say they would have had the notion of tajweed, like they know how to pronounce letters. They would have knew that letters need pronunciation, but the notion of the science of tajweed hadn't existed, even though tajweed is an Arabic word. So just like ijtihad is another example, the Prophet uses the term ijtihad in a hadith, as in إِذَا اجْتَهَدَ الْحَاكِمِ. But generally, the Arabs weren't using this word the way we today as Muslims use the word ijtihad. So we don't say, like the Prophet or the Sahaba won't say, hey, today I did ijtihad, for example. This, like, if you use the word ijtihad in front of them, ijtihad meant its linguistic understanding about effort, exerting effort. So they would probably get the gist of what you're saying, or they might ask you, what do you mean by that? So the interesting point is that Khilafah, the Arabs never used to refer to their rulers as Khalifas. In fact, mostly speaking, they didn't have kings either. Some of them did. I know the famous Malik al-Munzir, Malik al-Arab, and there were some Bani Himyar in the tribe of Himyar and other places. There were some kings. But generally speaking, they were Qaba'il, they were tribes. They had their own kind of Nuqaba, their Ra'is, the Ru'asa. They had Amirs. They had this concept of an Amir, of Walis, things like this, and Malik, kings and stuff like that. But they never had this notion of khulafa. So this doesn't emerge till after the Prophet. So how could the Prophet have been speaking to them about notions that weren't yet in existence? Like, how could the Prophet be saying to the people that, all right guys, there's going to be a khilafah, then the khilafah is going to go away, then there will be kingship, then the khilafah will come back. And hence Sheikh Ahmad Raisuni considered this hadith da'if. But as an example, other hadith, like this hadith in Bukhari, there will be 12 khulafa. Surely, what does that mean? Khulafa, like, what are we talking about? People who come after in what? Because the Arabs never at the time had this notion. So this shows that this hadith is most likely doctored and made up, most likely perhaps during the reign of Bani Umayyah, and up to, I would assume, probably the 12th Khalifa or the Caliph, most likely in his time. This would have been doctored, because this is what it's justifying. Because how could the Prophet be addressing them with notions and terminology that are not even in existence yet? One way out of this is you could say that this was done riwaya bil ma'na, as in the Prophet never said it like that, but he maybe said something like with this kind of meaning, and they retrospectively changed the words to fit that. That's probably the best case scenario, in which case, if the words have been changed, perhaps the meaning has been altered too. That's the best kind of angle that people could hold on to. But in generally speaking, this appears to have been doctored, because it doesn't make sense. Because even after the Prophet has passed away, Abu Bakr, when they say to Abu Bakr, what shall we call you? I know, why don't we call you Khalifa to Rasulullah, the person who came after Rasulullah, the messenger of God? But they ought to know this anyway. They ought to know, because the Prophet's been mentioning Khalifa, 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 Khalifa all these times. So they ought to know that there's a concept called a Khalifa and a Caliph and Khilafah, and you're now the Caliph. Why were they, and when they were arguing to say, how should we have the leadership, why were they not using this word? When they were saying, I know, why don't you have an Amir from the Muhajirin and an Amir from the Ansar? Why weren't they saying, you have a Caliph, we have a Caliph? So all of these things are right. So I'm not sure what these questions are. So that was an interesting point. I presented that to Sheikh Akram Nadwi. He said he said that yes, it's unquestionable that hadith were definitely transmitted by meaning. And he said, but this is also an interesting question about when the notion didn't exist, how could have there been a hadith? And he said that is a good question and it would require research. Right, okay, next question. Akhtar Hus has asked a very good question. The question, mi gente, my people. All right. It's a very good question, that if we're going to say that these hadith books have some doubt in the way they've been established, are we not putting the Quran into doubt? Right, okay, so that's a very good question, and we actually discussed this yesterday as well with Sheikh Akram Nadwi. And I said that it's really important that Muslims stop fabricating our past. Right, Muslims need to stop fabricating our history and trying to reverse engineer it. Right, they are doing a disservice. The Quran was not established in the same way that hadith isnad was collected. Anybody who says this has no idea, and they are lying. They are either lying or they are ignorant of how the Quran was transmitted. The Quran has never been transmitted through isnad. This is a lie that these people are saying. This is because Muslims became over the centuries so influenced through the lens of the muhaddithin, they started to see everything the way the muhaddithin saw things. That is a lie. The Quran was not transmitted through isnad. Where are these, these isnad that we use a chain to transmit something? This emerged between 100 to 120 years after the Prophet. This is not how the Quran was transmitted. The Quran was just taught. So for example, I know the Quran, I'm going to teach it to my children, I'm going to learn it. The Muslims just taught the Quran en masse transmission. Everybody, it was their goal to just forward the Quran. So they would teach it to their children, teach it to their family, teach it to their wives, sons, daughters, friends, and everybody was just transmitting it like this. Uthman radiallahu an, he made if we can call like a master copy, a master print of the Quran, which is known as the Mus'haf of Uthman, or the Rasm al-Uthmani. He wrote it out like this, and he sent it out, several of these copies, into the key capitals of the Muslim world. And everybody was to just make a copy from them, and they were to teach. Now, it didn't have dots and things like that the way it does today. hence the way to read it could vary. So people could read it with slight, for example, there's a verb, you could read it as, I'm just saying as an example, like let's say it said something like, I don't know, like let's say it said ya'lam or ta'lam. Like I'm just saying as an example, or it said something like from these, that's a, let's say it said ya'lam, yu'allim, yu'lim. These are variations of how something could be read. But generally speaking, the context always made it clear. Now, on some things, they disagreed, because how do you read it? As long as it made sense to them, they just read it. And that is the truth. The Quran, you know, when people say we've got these qira'at, and these qira'at are mutawatira, and these qira'at, we've got these variations, these 7 and 10, and this, people have just come up with this. This was just the way these people read it. These qurra, these people of recitation just read the Quran in a particular way. It made sense to them and they read it. It wasn't, this is why we have to stop this way that people are saying. Do you know where the problem came? The problem came when Muslims in our recent century, in the 20th century, started to come up with ridiculous claims. Like they started to say things like, you know, the Quran, if one vowel has changed, then it's not the Quran. Like every vowel has always been the same. Now they should never have made claims like this, because these claims then make us look stupid. Because first of all, it's false. Vowels of the Quran have been within different readings. However people read them, if it made sense, if it fit, if it applied to the Rasmul Uthmani, then it was okay. And you could read the Quran like that. Otherwise, you're going to say people like, look, you've got
Can you come in the toilet?
name Chan. अच्छा जाओ पापा दर्स कर रहे हैं ना, यहाँ पे लेसन कर रहा हूँ. Okay, so so this is my, I'm getting interrupted now by Zara ji. अच्छा Zara, आप यहाँ सलाम कहना है? Okay, चलो यहाँ, and then फिर जाना पड़ेगा, okay?
Hello.
Okay, बोलो अस्सलाम वालेकुम.
Assalamu alaikum.
अब जाओ वहाँ पे, ठीक है? दरवाज़ा बंद कर दो. जाओ. Right, so right, so coming back to this thing, that look, if it, like let's say you take one of the reciters like Nafi'. Now Nafi', Warsh, right, is taking from him. Qalun is taking from him. Two people are taking from the same, even with whether it's going to be Asim or all these key people, you have other transmitters taking the recitation from him and it's different. So Warsh is different from Qalun. How are they taking from the same person the qira'ah and it's different? So we are making, you see, so the thing was this. That's because it just made sense to their reading. Now there's a certain, the Quran in its early stage, the way it was revealed, had certain flexibility in how it could be read. Now, hence you find some of the ahadith in how the Arabs said some things. How that flexibility was just locked in and transmitted through the Rasmul Uthmani. Uthman, radiallahu an, made a master script of the Quran, which in with the companions present. I mean, the Quran was first compiled in the time of Abu Bakr radiallahu an. Then in Uthman's time, he made a master print. He made several of them and sent them to the key, I think maybe 7, sent them to the key capitals of the Muslim world and asked them to be copied from and taught en masse, like just teach them. Now the way you read them, right, could vary, because people, certain words could be, so it's like saying how people have, I mean, this is a really poor analogy, but as an example, let's just say the way we have certain accents that vary in English now. Now some people may read certain things differently. They may, like whether a word is read like, I don't know, like let's say secretary or secretary or library. Now these words would sound different. But as an example, that's a poor analogy. Or let's say the way we have words written, like American English, British English, we write colour with O-U-R. Colour, L-O-U-R, and they write it just O-R. Now, if somebody was writing this, both would still be right. Now, like this, the meaning that could be read from this transcript was okay, because this is what the Quran was transmitted as. And it had that kind of some fluidity. And this is what it was. The problem, Muslims never had a problem with this. What happened is along came some reciters later on. So these reciters, these qurra, became popular. People started taking from them. That's fine. They started to say, look, here's a better way of reading. And people took it. Alhamdulillah, there's nothing wrong with that. But to think the Quran was transmitted through these people only is a lie. It was never transmitted through just Asim and through these people, Nafi and so on. That's not the case at all. And then to say that these people, this is the mutawatir and this is this and this is this. People have just come up with this over the time and over the ages. And then in the last century, we've had people making claims like if one vowel of the Quran has never been changed. Now don't say stuff like that, because that's wrong. It has been moved up and down because it was allowed to. But when you make that claim, then it just takes a few ex-Muslims, a few atheists, a few Islamophobes to come along and to say, well, you know, you say no vowel has changed, and here the entire word has changed. Here the meaning has changed. Look, in this recitation, you're reading it very differently. In this one, you're reading it differently. So it has changed. So, and then Muslims are like, but the meaning does change in several words. Subtly. It does and can have subtle variations. But that was the nature of the Quran. It catered for that. It was never this constricted, rigid kind of thing that we think it is today. We think the Quran today is this locked in thing. It wasn't. Even its meaning was to open up for new generations in different ways. That was the kind of, if I can use the word, miraculous nature of the Quran. But people today, like, we've got locked into this thing of, oh, this is the Mus'haf. Find me where one vowel is different anywhere in the world. Your Bible is different. You know, like with Ahmad Didat, who was a great person, but this culture emerged. And even before, in different parts, when trying to refute the Bible, Muslims started to say things like, our even one vowel isn't different. Ahlan wa sahlan, Imam Mark is in the house. Ahlan wa sahlan, Imam. All right, those of you that don't follow the Imam, please do. An amazing legend from America, from the States, into his fitness. And if you have any questions, reach out to him, inshallah. Right, so the question here, the point in what I'm trying to say is the way the Quran was transmitted, it came with a certain amount of fluidity. That is how the Quran was. And that's just how it was. But I know some Muslims may struggle with that, but there's nothing wrong in that. The problem is when people present it in a very rigid manner, and then people like Orientalists or atheists or Islamophobes will catch them out. Okay, so then you'll have a problem. Okay, so I just wanted to clarify that. And Sheikh Akram said exactly the same thing yesterday. Sheikh Akram Nadwi. He said Muslims need to stop all this saying this, these recitations. Moustache over the lip is haram. My moustache ain't over the lip, but so he said the same thing, saying all these these different qira'at are mutawatir. He said this is just, people just made this up along the way and people just went with it. So okay, I thought I'd answer that. It answers some questions. Yes, I mean, that does mean that there's subtle differences in the meaning of the Quran as well. That is true when you read it, if you read it in different ways. But that's what I'm trying to say, and this is what Abu Bakr ibn Arabi, the great Maliki, says as well, by the way, that this is what the Quran, the flexibility it came with, the fluidity. And he says, you know, this hadith of that the Quran was revealed on 7 letters, this is just a nonsensical hadith. It has no basis. That people just keep transmitting this. Okay, right, so, cool. Nails? Nails are fine. Right, so anyway, let's go through some of these questions. Those of you just tuning in, click like, click share, people. Somebody had asked me about the Ibrahim alayhi salam. Ibrahim alayhi salam, which one of his sons was slaughtered? This is interesting because I think we have nothing truly conclusive that tells us which son it was. Okay. So many Muslims believe, right, this Tsar Olaf who keeps saying, oi, fix your camera. How about we fix you instead? And block you. So behave yourself before you get blasted into oblivion. Right, so now the coming back to what I was saying, Ibrahim alayhi salam, this sacrificing of his son, there's 2 points I want to take a look at. One, which son? And 2, I want to take a look at the actual sacrifice. Offering a sacrifice. What is this about? Okay, so these 2 things. First of all, which son was it? Now, there is a difference of opinion within Islam as well. This is not an agreed upon fact. Majority of the people seem to believe it was Ismail alayhi salam. And they use certain evidences, certain hadith to go with the Prophet saying things like, I am the son of the two men who were almost sacrificed. And so these kind of things, and they use other narrations to imply and infer that it was Ismail alayhi salam. Other people felt it was Ishaq alayhi salam. Amongst them, they say it was Umar ibn al-Khattab radiyallahu an believed that. Sa'id ibn al-Musayyib, I believed that as well. Imam Malik, actually, believe it or not, believed that it was Ishaq and not Ismail. The great Maliki scholar from Muslim Spain, Qadi Abu Bakr ibn Arabi, the Don and legend, right, of Muslim Spain, he actually, explains the whole difference. He's got a whole book on it called, I think it's called Al-Qawl Al-Sahih fi Tabyin Al-Dhabih. Something, I do have it here somewhere. And I went through, it's a good book, and he goes through all these differences of opinion and shows, although Abu Bakr ibn Arabi himself goes with the understanding that it's Ismail in the end, but there is no conclusivity on this matter. I once sat in a lesson many years ago with a sheikh trying to say how the Jews have got it wrong, and it wasn't Ishaq, it was clearly Ismail. The truth is that's false. We don't have any conclusivity. Most Muslims, we tend to believe it was Ismail. Other Muslims believed it was Ishaq. They were great Muslims, people like Imam Malik, like Umar ibn al-Khattab radiyallahu an, Sa'id ibn al-Musayyib, great people of this ummah. So both opinions hold strength. Okay, so that's the first aspect. The second aspect is, what about sacrificing your son? Now, you see, when we read the Quran, it's interesting that Allah doesn't say He commanded Ibrahim alayhi salam to sacrifice his son. Okay, He doesn't say that. Ibrahim alayhi salam, Allah relates, as in narrates, that Ibrahim alayhi salam mentions to his son that he saw a dream, that inni ara fil manami anni azbahuk, that I saw a dream. It was a really strange dream. in the dream I was sacrificing you. Now we know in old nations and old civilizations people had offerings and they did these kind of things as sacrificial rituals and things like this. Ibrahim alayhi salam does not say anywhere that Allah told me to do this, or Allah does not say anywhere He's telling Ibrahim alayhi salam to do this. Rather, Ibrahim alayhi salam is telling his son in his old age, he tells his son that, look, I saw in a dream that I'm sacrificing you. His son, who is young at the time, very young, is obviously a young boy, says to him that this is revelation and you should do it. It's a command. So he says that he tells him, if'al ma tu'mar, that you need to do, and you will find that I will be patient. Like, sacrifice me, that this is revelation. It must be God telling you. It must be God telling you to sacrifice me. And then I can see, yes, I mean, some people may take an angle that was it the shaitan giving this kind of an insinuation. That's an angle. Another angle is maybe even if it wasn't the shaitan, but it was just a dream. It could be, I mean, that's an angle. Some people have used that verse, except when the shaitan kind of threw into them thoughts about the prophets and stuff like this. There is that verse, and it is, and you see it here, so وَمَا أَرْسَلْنَا مِنْ قَبْلِكَ مِنْ رَسُولٍ وَلَا نَبِيٍّ إِلَّا إِذَا تَمَنَّى أَلْقَى الشَّيْطَانُ فِي أُمْنِيَّتِهِ. So this kind of verse, which some people have foolishly used to justify the satanic verses with our prophet, but this, some people may argue that this was to do with that same dream and Ibrahim alayhi salam, this coming from the devil. Other people, it doesn't have to be that though. It doesn't have to be that. It could just be that sometimes, you see, even in psychology, when you love something so much, it preoccupies your mind and you have a fear of loss. And people often end up dreaming about that thing. And Ibrahim alayhi salam, we know that in his old age, he was really fond of this child. All of a sudden he had a son and he was really fond of him. Now he has this dream. So it could have been just a natural dream. It doesn't have to be something, although that may be an interpretation. But the point is that it's his son who starts emphasizing to him that, no, this is revelation, you need to do it. To the extent that he convinces Ibrahim alayhi salam that this must be a test and I'm going to do it. And Allah saves Ismail and tells Ibrahim alayhi salam that, look, because of your conviction that you felt that Allah had commanded you to do this, even though Allah hadn't commanded you, but because of your sheer devotion, commitment to Allah, that the most beloved thing to you, you thought Allah has commanded you to sacrifice it, and you were even prepared to do that, to go to that extent for your love of for Allah, that Allah, for that love, not the act of sacrificing, but for that love, Allah highly commends Ibrahim alayhi salam and tells him that this stops him from doing that, tells him sacrifice an animal, the ram that appears, and we'll make this a sunnah for people that will come as well from your sunnah. And this is the level, that your level of devotion to Allah, even when Allah hadn't told you to do this, but you felt that Allah had told you to do it, maybe because of this dream and your son telling you, that you were prepared to sacrifice everything for you, just so you remain faithful to Allah. That love and devotion from Ibrahim, he himself has the status of like the commitment of a civilization almost in one man. That inna Ibrahim kana ummah, he was like an ummah in himself. Now, this is the understanding. Okay. So I just wanted to highlight that. So people have asked things like this, and this is something that atheists ask a lot as well, that Ibrahim, why would God want Abraham to sacrifice his son? God didn't tell Abraham to sacrifice his son. So I just wanted to clarify that nowhere in the Quran does Allah mention that. Nowhere does he say, I wanted him to sacrifice and do this. So just to clarify these things, okay? So I hope that's of some help. Right, the Ibrahim entering the fire, I've answered that before. Nowhere in the Quran does it actually mention that Abraham was thrown into the fire. It doesn't mention that anywhere. It mentions Allah saved him from the fire. Okay, saved him from it. Some people understood from that it must have meant he was thrown in it and then saved. That doesn't have to be the case. Allah uses the same verse, saved Noah from the flood. It doesn't mean he was thrown in the flood and then saved. It doesn't mean that. So, okay. So that's the satanic verses I've answered on several occasions. Wouldn't a prophet know if it's a commandment or not? You see, he doesn't say it's a commandment. It's his son who says to him that do what you have been commanded. And here at this stage, because dreams can also be revelation, they don't have to, not every dream a prophet sees has to be a revelation, but revelation can come through dreams. So at this point, Ibrahim alayhi salam became slightly, he thought maybe it is. And his son insisted that do it. And he thought, and that's why he kind of started to believe, oh, this must have been a commandment. And Allah then obviously saves him from doing that and tells him no. But so that's the kind of summary anyway. What's your view on Shia? What are Shia? S-H-E-A. I don't know what that is. Okay, let's take a few questions, people. Somebody asked about the satanic verses. I've answered that enough times, so many times. I think it's shocking how my mates and their sense of humor. Where would we be without our sense of humor in this world? It's coming home, people. It's coming home. Hell yeah, hell yeah. Right, so I'm going to bring up some of those questions that people have asked on Facebook. I want to first of all give a shout out to Indra. Shukran, muchas gracias. I don't have it with me, but Indra, for your gift, you sent a gift. Much love, much appreciated. Right, and so I just wanted to give that shout out before I forget. All the way from Indonesia. Look at that. Look where this voice reaches. Now that is the connection that in itself is a blessing from Allah, people. This connection, a global connection. Indra Gandhi? No, not Indra Gandhi. Indra, our good friend, is. I'm going to. I don't want to misquote his surname, so I'll have to read it out. I'm probably going to read it wrong, but it's Indra Aryateja, I believe. So, shukran, akhana, brother, much love for that once again. Right, I'm just going to go to these questions that have been asked on Facebook, because people have said you're not answering some of the questions that we post on there. ¿Por qué? And they've got a valid point, to be fair. We need to answer some of these questions. Salam from Germany. All right, Robert. Wa alaikum assalam. I have a dream. Well, let's just hope it's we're not talking about the ones that require ghusl. Right, so where are we, people? Oh no, this is the other article. Come on, let me get into this. I'm trying to get to the questions. For some reason, All right, I'm there, people. I'm there. Right, so here are some of the questions. Just going to go through some of these. Can you please... This is from John Rambo. From Rambo. Oh. Right, can you please touch on the issue of post-mortem? Look at subconscious. Touch post-mortem. Ye kya ho raha hai yaar? What is happening this? Does it cause pain to the soul, which many scholars have mentioned? Of course it doesn't. When a person is dead, they are dead, people. They are dead. Imam Zia is in the house. Ahlan wa sahlan. Imam Zia, people, those of you not following Imam Zia of the States, originally from a Brit, over in the States, do follow him. Amazing Imam with great character. Right, so... Right, next question. When is your video in response to Sheikh Asrar going to be released regarding Isa alayhi salam? The video is going to be a full day's course, maybe at the end of this month. You know, it was just one thing after another. Then there was Ramadan, and then Ramadan just kind of... And then, so after that, now we're thinking maybe when it's holidays and it's going to be a full day's course. And it's not just to Sheikh Asrar, it's for anybody and everybody. It's for the whole... we had this whole kind of trolling tolla, this whole gang of trolls, right, from some of them this hardcore Deobandi cultists, right? It's for them and anybody else as well. It's going to be for everybody, right? So inshallah. But it was good. I thought, let the topic, let everybody say everything. I thought, let them empty their hearts out, and then I will come to kind of bring those souls back to life. Where did sectarianism arise from? Surely Islam is about unity rather than separation. Absolutely, Abid. You've hit the nail on the head. It is about unity. Right. Chico Choco says, can you please clarify your controversial views? How they make sense when almost 99.99%, not even 99%, how much? 99.99%. Chico Choco has been doing some analyses and doing some statistics, weighing up, quantifying all of the ulama worldwide, as though the ulama just all hang out in one, I don't know, like shisha lounge or something. Are you guys the ulama? Yep, that's us. And how does the statistic do 0.00 or 0.01%? How does that happen? Anyway, scholars disagree with you, and such views disagree with you. Chico Choco, what a name. No intent for misrepresentation. Please correct me if I misrepresented you. My name is Chico Choco. The question one, stories in the Quran are nothing more but just some irrelevant stories. Look at this. When have I said that? That's a great way, isn't it, of saying, what is this view of yours? Well, first of all, I've never said that, so okay. Two, the shaitan is not real, it's just an imagination. So I've not said that either. So okay, Chico Choco. Right, ciao, ciao. Ciao Bella, ciao Bella, ciao, ciao, ciao. That's it. So, this is, I've not said any of those things. What I have said is that somebody has asked, does the shaitan have to be a figure per se, like a person-like figure, or could it be things like these insinuations within us? It could be. That's an interpretation I've said. I don't know how the shaitan actually is. It seems like Chico Choco seems to know the shaitan. Chico Choco's like, what are you talking about? I know the shaitan personally. Shaitan's like my cousin. Number 2, the stories in the Quran are nothing more. Look at that. What a belligerent and disrespectful way of saying it. I've never said that. I've said that the stories in the Quran, the way to captivate people, human beings, is always through stories. And the Quran also brings stories. It brings narratives. They have great lessons in them. I've always said they have great lessons in them. But what they were never about was trying to get caught up in the science of them. So Allah wasn't trying to, when He teaches you the story of Musa alayhi salam, He's not trying to teach you, for example, how geography works or how geology works or how are illusions conducted, or He's not trying to teach you that. He's trying to teach you the narrative of Musa alayhi salam, and you can extract this lesson of that right overcoming wrong, of having patience, forbearance, of fighting for what is right, of justice, of struggle. You can take these, of victory. You can take these lessons of Allah being with you, but you too have to, of being able to make mistakes in this world, like Musa alayhi salam when he accidentally killed somebody because he got into a fight with him. That sometimes in life things may go wrong perceptibly, but still hang in there. These are amazing lessons that the Quran gives you. Rather than just saying them, it gives you them through a beautiful story. Now, because stories captivate human beings. So yes, but I've never said they're irrelevant stories. Anyway, right, so and somebody, Shukran, did say these ain't his views. So much love to Imran Khan said that. Much appreciated. Right, what's the point? Right, just a few questions. Is it permissible to keep a dog as a pet in the home according to Maliki fiqh? And the answer is yes, it is permissible. I've answered that previously on a few occasions. You can keep a dog as a pet if you like. I know generally... right, look at that. Generally, I think... the Pakistani culture, we are just freaked out by dogs. I don't think... I would just feel very, very uncomfortable. I'm trying to overcome it, but we just have this phobia. I don't know. I don't think I had it when I was an absolute kid. But along the way... Anyway, so that's... But the question is, yes, according to Maliki fiqh, dogs are pure. They can be kept in the home if that's necessary. And people like Ibn Abi Zayd al-Qayrawani in his time did used to keep them around the kind of if you... Oh, right. Oh. Right, that's great. Almost got to set this up again. All right, so I think I've knocked the whole thing off there. Got to straighten this, folks. Un momento. This is gonna... Anytime I touch this screen now, it's just gonna... What it is this desk that I've got isn't the... I got to change this. That's better. Un momento. Let me straighten that up. Right, so as I was saying, next question coming to, I take it's yes, so Ibn Abi Zayd al-Qayrawani, I think that's kind of knocked off. It's Ibn Abi Zayd al-Qayrawani. He does highlight these points. Yes. All right, people, look at that close up. All right. That's what we're talking about. That's what we are talking about, folks. So, straightening that. Alright. Now, Ibn Abi Zayd al-Qayrawani, who's a great Maliki legend, he does say in his time he used to keep a dog in the front kind of, I don't know what, like a front garden, I suppose, like a courtyard of his house. And when he was asked, he said that the companions, if they lived, or the Salaf lived in our day and age, they would have kept lions, let alone dogs. So yes, that's absolutely fine. You can do that. You can do that, people. Right, so As-salam. My question is regarding the menstrual cycle and women not being able to pray. My understanding is the Quran does not prohibit, does not mention anything about praying being for women who are not on their menstrual cycle, but rather is mentioned in some hadith. Fair to say this has been influenced. The Quran does mention that having intercourse during menstruation is forbidden, but not mention anything about Salah. Right, okay, so what is this ruling? Right, okay, so this thing about menstruation, I've mentioned this before, that this is more so a kind of, it's like it's a dispensation, okay? It's a dispensation that Islam has given to women on their menstrual cycle. It's allowed for them to not have to necessarily pray. They don't have to pray. That is really, if anything, just seen as a kind of, it is, in certain hadith, these rukhas are described as a sadaqah, a charity from Allah to humans, like to, in this case, women, or in other cases, whatever the dispensation, whether it's a traveler, an ill person. And the Prophet said, Inna Allah tasaddaqa alaykum, Allah has given you a charity, faqbalu sadaqata. Okay, so accept his charity. So that's what it is. In terms of the women being impure, that's not true. Okay, so that is not true that women are impure, or that they have to be treated as though they're impure and things like this. That is definitely not the case. Okay, so you know, people have this understanding that is inherited through culture. So people have kind of inherited this thing of women are, they become impure when they're on their menstrual cycle or things like this. That is not true at all. Okay, so just to kind of clarify that's a very cultural kind of practice. But other than that, the praying part is something which really is just a dispensation for them. They don't, so they can recite the Quran, as Imam Malik said. They can do things like that. Okay. Right, so, right, now, where are we? Jesus never went to sleep. Right, the Jesus thing we'll answer much later on, inshallah, when we'll get to that. Cool, so what are we looking at? Some other questions. Where are we getting to? Is the, try to rearrange my camera. What's my camera doing, man? It should be hopefully okay. Alright. Somebody said books to the ceiling. Look at that. To the ceiling they are, folks. To the ceiling. That's what I'm talking about. Right, so books are all the way to the ceiling. So since this, it is, I don't know, oh, right, trying to trap this. It is, I think it's because when it dropped, for some reason, it kind of just knocked it off balance the way. So I don't know what's gone wrong with my iPad. Unless I do something like one moment. Alright, we's back, people, we's back. So hopefully that should be, I'm hoping that's okay. Yeah, for some reason it's just that it doesn't seem to be picking up any of, even though there's tons of light here, but still. Alright people, sorry about that. It's back up and running. Just gonna so I hope that's people can still see it. Apologies for that. It's back up running. I'm just going to right, okay, here, no, this is the, I'm just sharing this as well again. Gotta share it, sorry. Can. Alright. So, I don't know what it is. This is an iPad Pro. It shouldn't really be playing up like this, but it does. Maybe I need to update to the latest. Right. Just writing part 2. Okay, that's done. Right, folks. Those of you just tuning in, click like, click share, people. Apologies for the turbulence that we've had to undergo there. Right, so some people have asked me to respond to Sunni defense. Right, so I'm going to give a slight summary and then just respond to them and then move back to some of the questions we've got here. Just to summarize, Sunni defense, or Wahhabi defense as they are back again. Our good old friend Baba Fariduddin Gangu Teli is back. Those of you who tuned in previously and saw my refutations of him, well, Gangu Teli is now back. That's Fariduddin, Baba Fariduddin Gangu Teli of Wahhabi defense. And some people said, look, in your previous refutations, trying to defend him, they said that, look, you know, how dare you say these things about them? They never really ever said anything disrespectful or blasphemous against the Prophet. And that's not true. And they said that you need to justify this kind of claim that you said. And I'll play. Look, the first thing that they actually said, this was their first refutation against me. Right? So
he's basically rejecting the evidence that emphasizes the human nature of the Prophet. I mean, what's wrong with the Prophet ﷺ getting sick and getting sexually impotent? Really? Is that like a criteria for him being a prophet? That he's, you know, sexually active and sexually...
This was the Sunni defense first refutation against me. That what's wrong with the Prophet being sexually impotent? That is it a criteria of his prophethood that he has to be sexually active? This is the ridiculous, blasphemous, Wahhabi, Najdi kind of attitude that we're dealing with. So you can already see, so that's not, you know, when somebody said to me that, oh, you know, you said this about these people and they've never said anything like that. Yeah. That's not true.
So he mentioned, you know, the hadith about Musa running around naked so people could see his testicles, you know, hadith Sihr al-Nabi. And you know what he said is that the Prophet, he said, you know, you guys believe that the Prophet was so incapable that a Jew put black magic on him. I mean, which is
and then he has this other one as well where he's saying there that he's attacking, like he's criticizing, that I'm criticizing these hadith that in Bukhari that the Prophet Moses ran around naked so people can see his testicles, and they're defending, like they're saying, like, what's his problem criticizing that, like. And then they go on to say, and this is on YouTube, This is their thing on YouTube. It isn't even my thing. This is the kind of ridiculous, blasphemous kind of Wahhabi defense that they are. And they then coming and attacking. Obviously, they were going to attack people like me. So this guy, one of the key people amongst them, Farid, who I referred to in one of our previous sessions as Baba Fariduddin Gangu Teli. So Gangu Teli Saab, our Bahrainian person is back now. And look, I want to make something clear. Gangu Teli Sahib, Sayyid Gangu Teli. نعم. لو سمحت, if you can انتبه لو سمحت, right? If you could just pay attention, right? Instead of going on about me being a jahil, me not knowing this, me not knowing this, even though first of all those criticisms are refuted because they do a cut and paste job. They're just stupid. Him trying to say, oh, look, a slip of the word here. Oh, he said, oh, he doesn't know. Oh, he's a jahil. He's a jahil. He must be an antichrist. Must be a dajjal. Shut up. Stop running away. This same topic that he's trying to defend, marital rape. He's trying to say that the Prophet said that a woman has no right to refuse sex to a husband. This hadith only comes down predominantly, the chains I've quoted come down through A'mash, through Qatada, Mudallisin. Stop running away with this nonsense. Bring me one Sahih hadith. One Sahih hadith that cannot be criticized. One. Stop this. If I'm such a jahil, then you should be able to bring one hadith. Bring one. Then we'll talk. Bring one hadith. Forget all this trying to distract. No. I know these tactics. These Najdi tactics of yours. Blaspheming people, hateful, carry hatred against the prophets. Stop all this nonsense. Bring me one Sahih hadith. Since I'm a jahil, since I'm a dajjal, I'm a jahil, I don't know what I'm talking about. Bring me one hadith about this that justifies this rape from the Prophet, that cannot be criticized. I will rip and show you where that hadith carries weakness and ilal. Bring me one. Do not run away from this question. Do not change the topic. Bring one hadith. One hadith. And if you need help, go to your ulama of Najd. Get them together, compile them, gather them together and tell them to help you bring one hadith that justifies this marital rape, going back to the Prophet, that cannot be criticized. Then we can speak. Bring one. Since I'm going on about me being a jahil, whether I'm a jahil or not is irrelevant. This kind of blasphemy is not attributed to our Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. You bring me one hadith that cannot be criticized. The chain I'm talking about. Show me one hadith. Stop trying to change the discussion, change the topic. Oh, he doesn't know Sulaiman al-A'mash. I use his name, Sulaiman al-A'mash. And the point I was making there was actually about Shu'bah. And yes, if trying to distract this topic by saying, by pausing a video, my point in that clip, he brings this clip and saying, oh, he doesn't know Sulaiman. My point in that was simply to say, because Shu'bah is somebody who claims tadlis is haram. He claims tadlis is haram. People might say, oh, Shu'bah is in this chain, so this ought to be okay. But the person transmitting from him is problematic. That was the point, which he conveniently pauses, by the way. Forget all of this. Forget. I'm a dajjal, a jahil. I don't know this. Anybody who studied usul al-hadith, mustalah al-hadith for 1 week knows more than Mufti Abu Layth. Well, fine. Bring one hadith. One hadith. No! One hadith. One. Don't change the topic. Don't run away. It's murawagatul kilab. Like this. Don't dodge. Like go round and round like these dogs do. Right? That's an Arabic ibara. Don't do that. Bring one hadith. Okay? Don't distract. Idhar udhar ki na baat kar. Ye bata ke kafila kyun luta. मुझे रहज़नों से गिला नहीं तेरी रहबरी का सवाल है. Don't tell me about this or that or whatever. You explain how this caravan got robbed. Huh? It's not about the thieves or the robbers or the bandits. How are you a leader of this caravan? That is what the poet says. So, idhar udhar ki na baat kar, ye bata ke kafila kyun luta. You bring me one hadith and then we'll talk. And if you've got the nerve to rise to my challenge after that, this is a challenge, by the way, challenge. My brother, you know, my brother, my Najdi brother. This is a challenge. So, if you can, first of all, rise to this, bring me one hadith. That should be easy, yeah? That cannot be criticized. Bring it. Bring it. Hatu burhanakum in kuntum sadiqeen. Sitting right here, as Maulana Yunus Nomani said. Amazing person, may Allah have mercy on his soul. A Munazir from Pakistan said, either they are sitting right here. Yahin bete huye hain. We're not going in. You bring one hadith. And then rise to my second challenge. Prove to me that Sahih Bukhari can be traced back to its author. Prove it. This one above your pay grade, my friend. This one, you and all, you can gather the whole of Wahhabidom and put it together. And bechare, unki bhi hawa nikal jayegi. This one big challenge, this one big problem, you know. Gangu Teli, fi big problem. It's a big problem, you know. So I'm waiting. So first, bring me a Sahih Hadith. Secondly, prove to me, how can you prove to me, beyond reasonable doubt, Sahih Bukhari going back to its author, but back to Imam Bukhari. Can you prove it? Can you prove it? Hell no, you can't. What manuscripts are you going to prove it from? Sultaniya? Based on the Uniniya? Oh, the Sultaniya, which is, people, for your information, which based a lot of what it did on the Uniniya of, you've got Shihabuddin al-Unini, al-Ba'li al-Hanbali, from the 700 Hijri, 8th century, he passes away. But we don't have a manuscript even of the Uniniya. We have a far'un from it. Somebody who copied it from him. Did he make a mistake? Is that what we're going by? And then the Uniniya, which disagrees with the others, riwayat, and what is he going through? Al-Hamawi? Is he disagreeing with Mustamli? Is disagreeing with the other riwayat of Sarakhsi? Is disagreeing with... And Farabri, what about Farabri? I mean, why did nobody consider him reliable in hadith up until hundreds of years after him? This one, big problem. Why does Mustamli say that Farabri had a copy of Bukhari which was incomplete? And he had parts of it were musawwada, were incomplete, and we used to move them around, which was endorsed by Abul Walid al-Baji and Qastalani. Es muy interesante. And what does Abul Walid al-Baji say? Abul Walid al-Baji says that it's interesting. Mustamli says, كَانَ عِنْدَهُ أَصْلٌ نَنْتَسِخُ مِنْ. He had one copy we all used to copy from, and yet they all got it different. And then the interesting case of Saghani. Oh, you naughty. You may say. Saghani is another person who comes hundreds of years after, who claims to have the actual copy of Rabri. Wah, Saghani. Saghani was born in Lahore. He was actually. Saghani was a Hanafi scholar born in Lahore. And he claimed to have found an actual copy hundreds of years after Rabri, by the way. Nobody else has seen this copy. He claims it. Obviously, Lahore, eh? He goes, Wah, I found an actual copy. And then his copy has Gharaib, which none of the other copies of Bukhari have. Wah, Saghani, wah. And so where is this one big problem, you know? Where is this? How do we prove this one? You know, how do we prove this one? So I still eagerly await. So these are challenges, first of all, to the Wahhabi defense team. And then by extension to anybody who wants to place Sahih Bukhari as a god and to make Allah and His Messenger revolve around Sahih Bukhari, they need to prove this actually belongs to Imam Bukhari to start off with. Because see, what they didn't tell you is they told you from Imam Bukhari to the Prophet. What they didn't tell you is how this book then comes to us. Because all of the transmitters of Bukhari's, their copies seem to disappear. Ooh, mystery. Ooh. One person remains, Farabri, who seems to be unknown by his contemporaries. But 200 years later, somebody says, what a guy. Somebody 200 years later, Abu Sa'ad al-Sam'ani says, this Farabri great. But before him, no news. We don't know, you know, who this Farabri is. We know who, but nobody vouching for him. So this one, big problem. And then the copies that go throughout the world all disagree with themselves. Hadith missing, hadith less, patched together. We've got cut and paste job going on. How many hands are copying? We've got no idea. His own Farabri student saying, by the way, his copy was incomplete. We used to move things around in it. We used to place chapter headings. All this nonsense about Bukhari's fiqh is in his chapter headings. Mustamli says we used to make the chapter. Wah. So somebody might ask here, why am I opening this can of worms to do with Bukhari? And this isn't just Bukhari, the other books as well, by the way. Sahih Muslim, and these have problems as well, because the Sahih Muslim is based on the Istanbul transcript, which has its own problems. But right now, we want to focus on Bukhari. Because the reason I'm doing this is to show we need to return to the methodology that was taught to us by Imam Malik. And Imam Malik taught us in his Muwatta. He taught us through fiqh. This was the practice of Medina. He taught us that we will never be sound in this deen until we learn to accept and reject hadith. So you must accept some and you must reject some. This is the way, this is the balanced path of this ummah. Imam Malik places hadith in his Muwatta and says, we don't accept this hadith. Imam Malik himself says, if you start accepting every one after one, or these isolated narrations, he says the entire deen will be snatched from you. This is the teaching of Imam Malik. The other interesting thing is that the deen was already preserved through fiqh. How you practice Islam was already preserved. And is this an attempt? Somebody may say, well, why don't we just get rid of all of hadith? The question is, hadith contain a lot of useful detail that add color to this deen. And they are important. And we know through corroboration that not all hadith are false. We know that because they corroborate through independent sources and they fit in with the Quranic teachings, with the principles of Islam. So if hadith come to us and the hadith are about simply about rules and things like this, or how to practice Islam, if they do not go against reason, as Ibn al-Jawzi and all these scholars before us in hadith had said, Ibn Hazm, that they do not clash with reason, they do not go against the Quran, they do not go against the clear sources that have been transmitted, the corroborated sunnah that has come through, like the amal of Ahlul Madinah in Imam Malik, or that has been preserved through fiqh or through corroborated hadith, and they do not uproot a principle of Islam, then they have no problem. Okay? They have no problem. Otherwise, it is a problem, and we need to take them with a pinch of salt. Okay? Because some of these some of these hadith insult Islam. And they cannot be authentic. So, okay, so somebody saying reason is subjective. Of course, being a human being is subjective. It doesn't stop you being a human being, does it? You know, like, is that not subjective, being a human being? Well, there is something known as intersubjectivity. Watch my whole lecture on reason. Okay. About gold and silver. First of all, I'm not wearing a chain of gold. This is silver, but I do not believe gold to be haram for men. Neither do I believe silk to be haram. I have a video, I have a clip on YouTube, please watch that. I go into much more detail showing the great scholars like Imam Shawkani, Ibn Daqiq al-Eid, all these people demonstrating how several companions of the Prophet, right till their very death, they wore gold. And I don't actually personally wear gold, just because I just prefer silver, but I don't actually believe it haram, believe it to be haram, forbidden. I believe it to be discouraged, that's all. Right, so now, I wanted to go through a quick hadith, people, to show. Somebody had asked a question, and I wanted to. It's a hadith from Sahih Bukhari. We're going to take a look at. And this is in line, it's a quick hadith analysis we're going to do. And this is in line with the understanding of hadith which are problematic. They are in Bukhari. They're in other books as well. So this one can be found in the Musnad of Ahmad. And there's narrations in Sahih Muslim, parts of it. But I'm going to just focus on Bukhari just because we don't have too much time. And to show that there are hadith that are problematic that have crept in. And these are hadith which insult Islam. Okay, so we need to be really careful about some of these. And that is, there's a hadith, let's take a look at this one. There's a hadith in Bukhari under Ahadith al-Anbiya, under the Ahadith of the Prophets in Sahih Bukhari. And it mentions, look, it's from Bishr ibn Muhammad, from Abdullah ibn Mubarak, قال أخبرنا معمر عن همام عن أبي هريرة, that the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alayhi wasallam said, لولا بنو إسرائيل لم يخنز اللحم ولولا حواء لم تخن أنثى زوجها. This is once again a blasphemous hadith because it's misrepresenting nonsense to the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wasallam. So it's saying that if it wasn't for the children of Israel, food would never go foul, would never go off. Like food would always just remain, like basically if you left some meat here, and it mentions here meat specifically. In another riwayah it does say ta'am. In this particular riwayah it says meat. So if you left meat there, it would never go off. It would just always stay sound, healthy, and ripe the way it is. But food only gets bacteria, and these things only happen because the Banu Israel, the Israelites, disobeyed God. That is ridiculous. Okay, that is insulting our Prophet to say things like this that he did not say. Okay, and then it goes on to say that walola Hawa, if it wasn't for Hawa, all right, Hawa here is obviously Hawa doesn't come in the Quran, but Hawa is Eve. the wife, if we want to use the term wife, or of Adam alayhi salam, although it may be most likely that Adam most likely would have probably had multiple kind of partners and things like this. That's the only commonsensical way that that he could populate such an offspring through one woman. It's incredibly unlikely that the globe would be populated like that, right? So, but that's a different discussion. But Lola Hawa, if it wasn't for Eve, lam takhun untha zawjaha, no woman would ever betray her husband. Now listen to that. That is utterly unacceptable. That is misattributing just misogyny to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, when he didn't say. This is clearly, this kind of language is clearly from biblical talk at best. Okay, at best this is kind of Judeo-Christian kind of talk, and many of the things that have been transmitted sometimes through Abu Hurairah radiallahu anh, he used to take from his convert teachers like Ka'b al-Ahbar, and from other teachers as well that had converted to Islam after the time of the Prophet, and they were scholars of Judaism or Christianity when they came. And there's a hadith even in the Muwatta that Abu Hurairah says he spent the whole day at what he believed was Mount Sinai studying from Ka'b al-Ahbar about his religion, and in turn he was telling him about hadith as well. So sometimes it may come from Abu Hurairah radiallahu anh, sometimes it may come from people from them, that they mix things up as well. So sometimes they may think Abu Hurairah is saying it, that the Prophet said this, but he didn't say that. Sometimes it may come from the people that's transmitting it from them, these mistakes. So first of all, this hadith contains two, not only factual errors, but what are causes to ridicule religion. That, oh, if it wasn't for the Israelites, food would never go off. Like food would always remain sound. That's not how bacteria works. That's not how nature works, okay? Nature is not a result of the Israelites. Okay. Secondly, it says Lola Hawa, if it wasn't for Eve, right? That no wife or woman would betray her husband. This is nonsense, because first of all, this is trying to act like, well, women have inherited this from Eve somehow, that Eve was this temptress, this kind of seductive, evil woman who betrayed Adam. This is a very Christian narrative, a Judeo-Christian narrative. Secondly, it's trying to act, this hadith is portraying that women are the culprits in society who betray men. And that's, if we're going to be honest, because it's talking here, commonly speaking, it's actually men who more often than not are betraying women. That is generally the case. I mean, if we're going to look at, it's usually men, just the nature that men have, that they're going to not settle with one woman in many cases. Even if they do settle, that mostly it's men that will always be sleeping around. Mostly, I mean, that's just by the nature of males across species. It's not actually the nature of females across species to be so, if I can use the word, like rampantly just trying to have sex with every other, for example, male. Whereas it is the nature of males in most species to do that. So this whole thing is misportraying that. It's trying to act as if really the culprits, the real culprits, are just women who just are betraying, unfaithful to their husbands, sleeping around, doing things like this. And that's actually factually incorrect, right? So that's not generally society. I mean, I'm not saying it doesn't happen. I'm sure it does happen. But generally, if anybody, if you're going to criticize anybody, you'd criticize the men. Secondly, it's acting as though they've inherited this behavior from Eve. Thirdly, it's representing Eve as an evil woman who betrayed Adam, right? Which is nonsense, right? Now, Right, so, and by the way, when I said male species throughout I said generally and mostly. And I'm not saying there are some monogamous species, but generally, by and large, most males do happen to be very kind of, if we can use the word polygamous, as in they're very seeking extra, marital ain't the right word, but they're seeking, just basically seeking sex from opportunists when it comes to sex. Right, so this hadith is blasphemous, it is inaccurate, unacceptable. Even if we look at this sanad, we look at this chain, Bishr ibn Muhammad. Now, first of all, it's interesting that Bishr ibn Muhammad here, as-Sakhtiyani, who Imam Bukhari accepts from here, although Imam Bukhari himself begins by saying, he highlights, I don't accept from anybody in my book whose aqidah doesn't fit in line with this. Yet, Bishr ibn Muhammad as-Sakhtiyani was from the Murji'ah. That's what people have claimed. And that is people who believe that committing sins were not a problem as far as Iman was concerned. Yet he still accepts from him here, who goes through Abdullah ibn Mubarak. In this particular chain, it goes through Ma'mar, and then through Hammam, then Abu Hurairah. Now, Hammam, it has been criticized, although he's generally a reliable person, but he's been criticized. He brings the hadith in Abu Dawood to do with the ring and the Prophet having to take it off when he goes to the toilet and things like this. And people criticize. Abu Dawood said that this is from the wahm, a mistake of Hammam making mistakes. Bayhaqi does iqrar of that, accepts, acknowledges that, and other people try to refute them, but he makes mistakes. Right? And then you've got Ma'mar. Ma'mar, several people have critiqued. Ma'mar is reliable in many things as well, but he's been criticized for other narrations. You've got, let's see here. We've got, people have said that sometimes at certain locations they're worse than others. So you have, some of his hadith have been described as being massively turbulent. فيه اضطراب كثير, especially when he was in Basra. Sometimes in other places he's been criticized. He's been asked, so they mention Imam Ahmad saying in the riwayah of his son Salih that Ma'mar أخطأ بالبصرة في أسانيد, in his certain asanid he makes mistakes. He transmits from certain people problematic things, although generally one might say, yeah, but he used to make mistakes in a certain city only. That doesn't make sense. First of all, you know, when people have been known to be problematic, you have to be just. You have to stop being kind of very naive, and you have to think, well, you know, that you have to take some of the things with a pinch of salt. I'm just going to un momento just open this up as well. Right. Right, so some of the people Ma'mar has also been criticized for. His hadith from Thabit have been heavily criticized, although some people supported that, but yet look, Thabit, a known transmitter. Asim ibn Abi Najud, once again, he's been heavily criticized for hadith from these people. Now that just goes to show this person has some issues with him. The next person in... Right, so... Next person, sorry, I'm just opening it in this chain. So that's done two. We've taken a look at two of them. The first one being Hammam, who we've highlighted some people have got problems with. Then Ma'mar, as I've highlighted, although he's reliable, yet people have said certain locations, certain people, Thabit, Asim, all these things he has an issue with. People have massively problematized these hadith. Then somebody, in addition to the first teacher of Bukhari, As-Sakhtiyani in this case is also accused of being from the Murji'ah, which is problematic. Okay, so let's go back to the hadith. Well, somebody may say, well, this has another chain. And it does. If it allows me to open. Right, okay, excellent. This chain, in this case, the teacher of Bukhari, who's also known as Bukhari, is Abdullah al-Ju'afi al-Bukhari, sometimes known as al-Musnadi, because he was one of the first people to gather a Musnad, who comes through a similar chain, except this time it's Abdul Razzaq as-San'ani from Ma'mar, from Hammam. Okay, from Abu Hurairah. So we've taken a look at Hammam, some criticism, taken a look at Ma'mar. This is the second riwayah in Bukhari, and now Abdul Razzaq in this chain. Okay, so if we go back un momento. Abdul Razzaq. Right, we've got people like Imam Nasa'i. He says that fihi nazar, that we've got to be wary about Abdul Razzaq, especially in his later age. Al-Dhahabi says in Mizan al-I'tidal, ruwiya anhu ahadith manakir. There have been really massively problematic hadith transmitted from Abdul Razzaq as-Sam'ani. Darqutni says that قال ابن بكير عنه ثقة يخطئ على معمر في أحاديث. That Darqutni transmits that he makes mistakes from Ma'mar. And once again, where is this hadith coming? It is coming from Ma'mar. And then some people say he had Shia tendencies and things like this, but that aside, he's quoted by Dhahabi again in the Kashif. He mentions that وَلَهُ غَرَائِبْ وَمَنَاكِيرٌ. Okay, somebody who has غرائب, he has manakir. Abu Hatim al-Razi says about him that يُكْتَبُ حَدِيثُهُ وَلَا يُحْتَجُّ بِهِ, that we write his hadith, we do not consider them as evidence. Okay, so that's we've got that there about Abdul Razzaq as-San'ani. We've also got same thing here in the Ilal of Tirmidhi, the commentary. You've got people mentioning him. He is a popular scholar of hadith, and he has many hadith which we can accept if they do meet up to the criteria. He, towards his later part of his life, did kind of lose his eyesight, and that also impacted his hadith. They mention here as well, وَكَانَ يُلَقَّنْ أَحَدِيث بَاطِلًا. He would be taught fabricated hadith because his eyesight was impacted. Right, so that's there as well. But once again, same thing. وقد ذكر غير واحد عن أن عبد الرزاق حدث بأحاديث مناكير, that he's mentioned certain manakir hadith, especially as well after his eyesight was impacted. So that's something worth. Right, so that's highlighted here as well. And as you've seen the quotes from all of these scholars, Abu Hatim al-Razi, other people, Darqutni, quoting as well, transmitting, especially when we're looking at his ahadith from Ma'mar, we have a problem. Okay, so cool. I hope that's. Let me just check. Was there anything else here? Nope. That's okay, I've included the others. So the point is that you've got two chains here in Sahih Bukhari, both problematic. The content of the hadith is heavily problematic as well. It goes against the teachings of the Quran, which teaches, first of all, the Quran teaches equality, that Allah taught you, that we do not inherit. The Quran says, لا تزر وازرة وزر أخرى, that we do not inherit sins from people. We do not inherit this betrayal. This doesn't work like that. Allah teaches you in the Quran that food is a gift from Allah. He teaches you things like it comes from the earth. Do you not see how food is brought forth and this happens and that happens? This is the part of nature. Allah mentions وَلَن تَجِدَ لِسُنَّةِ اللَّهِ تَبْدِيلًا. It goes against the Quran. It goes against the general understanding of the sources in this deen, like the established sunan, like that women are just the counterparts, the equal counterparts of men. They're exactly the same. Our fitrah is the same. Okay, it goes against the established principles of Islam. That people should not be kind of shamed for just ancestry. And we don't have collective group guilt, like all women are culprits because Eve betrayed Adam. We do not believe Eve betrayed Adam. It's a very Judeo-Christian thing. So it goes against all of these things, and the Asanid have problems, whether you want to look at Muhammad ibn Bashar as suspect, or whether you want to see Hammam as some people having critiqued him, Abu Dawood or and Bayhaqi, or whether you want to see Ma'mar, who's been more critiqued than Hammam, and then Abdul Razzaq in the other chain, who's been criticized even more than all of them, or whether you want to see that as Abu Hurairah radiallahu an, here, was this a teaching from the Judeo-Christian sources that he got and people mistakenly passed it on as Islamic teachings? Either way, this is a hadith which insults Islam, and it is utterly unacceptable. It is blasphemous. Right, so I hope that's been of some help, people. I think we should kind of wrap this up. If there's any quick rapid round questions, maybe I'll take a few. Why was Adam sent to earth as a prophet if there was no other people? There were other people, as in hominins and things like that. I believe they must have been for Adam to emerge, and he wasn't sent, he was from earth. However, can you explain the parting of the sea for Moses? I will explain that in much detail, inshallah, in another episode. Neanderthals, of course, not only Neanderthals, the entire genus of hominins that have existed, including Homo sapiens that were pre-cognitive revolution. Right, so what else? Where do we get the raka'ats of the Quran? Raka'ats of the Quran are, the raka'ats of Salah are not in the Quran, and that's fine. This is an inherited practice from the Prophet. We inherit it through the Sunnah, the collective Sunnah, which was documented in fiqh, by the way. Fiqh was documented much before Hadith was documented, because people, as soon as Islam was there, people wanted to know how to pray and get about doing things. They didn't need ijazah to learn how to pray. So you have to remember these things, okay? So fiqh is always an amazing source to document the Sunnah. And yes, so the raka'at of Salah are there. Makruh to eat fish with dairy. That's a fabricated hadith. Of course, I mean, the Prophet never generally used to eat fish because Arabia is a desert, so you don't get much fish there. But it's definitely not makruh, no. Is it true if one eats or drinks anything haram, their dua or salah is not accepted for 40 days? No, that's not true. Can I translate the word Islam as safetiness? My understanding is Islam, although it can be seen as somebody who enters into a state of safety, I think it's more, and the same for mu'min, entering into a state of aman, but I think it more ties in as well with submission, somebody who enters into, submits to the understanding of the Creator. Why the punishment of the grave? I believe that, you see, the punishment of the grave isn't something that is clearly in the Quran in that sense at all. Some people say certain verses can allude to it, which are true. They can allude to that understanding, but it's not clear. There do seem to be certain ahadith, but some of the hadith to do with the punishment of the grave are problematic, because the things they mention are problematic. Like, it doesn't make sense why anybody... Like, so, for example, there's a hadith about a person who, when he urinates, his urine falls over him. So he's now getting tortured over that. Even though urine falling over you is not a sin. It's not seen as anything. I mean, okay, if you're about to pray, you should wash. That's a different ruling. But it's not a kind of like a crime or seen as, oh my God, person deserves to be punished. So this hadith is problematic in itself. So there are some, but most of the scholars have gone with this understanding that there is a punishment in the grave. Some scholars have problematized this. I would feel that this isn't conclusive. If you want to believe, I would personally say that this is open. If a person wanted to believe it, they could. If they didn't want to believe it, I feel there's scope. This isn't something that is that... clear. The Quran seems to teach that as soon as people die, the afterlife for them is as though it's just within moments. So they say, you know, Man ba'athana min marqadina, who brought us back from our sleep? That weren't we? And some of them say, weren't we yawman or ba'da yawm or nisfa yawm? Weren't we only out for a part of a day? So obviously that seems to go against the understanding that they were being tortured and they knew what was going on. So I would say, look, this is just open to people who it makes sense to. They can take it. To people who it doesn't make sense to, they don't need to take it. I think all of those views are there. Is Pul Sirat real? That's an interesting discussion. Is that influenced from other sources? Is this Pul Sirat brought in from Zoroastrianism as the Muslims conquered Persia and Zoroastrian people? Did they bring in their concept of the Pul Sirat that they had? Because Zoroastrianism has that as a key feature within their belief, that they call it the Pul. They actually call it Pul as well. Pul. It's just slipped my mind now. They have a word for it, but it's that God, their God, has two sons. One is evil, one is good, and they have a description that it's finer than the finest hair and sharper than the sharpest blade, and that when this world ends, both sons, the demigods, if you like, will be asked to go past this bridge, and the evil one won't be able to, and he will fall into the fire. This seems to be exactly the same thing that Muslims seem to have. This description they seem to have inherited. It's nowhere in the Quran anything like this. The Quran doesn't seem to speak of anything to do with a bridge called the Sirat, or and it seems to, if you look at the description of the Quran of the judgment and things like this, it seems to go against that. It doesn't, you know, there's nothing like this. Another test after a test, for example. Most Muslims do seem to have accepted this, however. I don't think it's a key belief. I don't think it's from the main aspects of Islam. Once again, I would feel it's on that spectrum. If you wanted to believe it, you could. If you didn't want to believe it, you could. I don't think this is established through qat'i arguments. You couldn't establish this through conclusive, because it's not in the Quran, full stop. You may take vague verses in the Quran like وَإِن مِّنكُمْ إِلَّا وَارِدُهَا, like the verse in the Quran, and they say, oh, this is talking about, or is this talking about death, or is this talking about Day of Judgment, or is this talking about, like, what is it? And some people say it's talking about this bridge. But that's not conclusive evidence. And you may take certain hadith with this same description that the Persian people had, hundreds and hundreds, like even thousands of years literally before Islam. I mean, they're like, you're talking almost in the time of Abraham, just after that, really. This understanding of Zarathustra, and this teaching that there will be a finer than the finest hair and sharper than the sharpest blade, a bridge that you have to cross. So I think it's interesting that did we inherit this through the people, through local culture, and then it got codified into creed. So that's an interesting discussion in itself. Okay, cool people, I hope that's of some help. I'm gonna leave you to it, inshallah. If you do like to reach out to me, message me, Facebook, Instagram, Mufti Abu Layth, Snapchat, Malm 2014, YouTube people, subscribe to my YouTube channel, because I'm always cutting out clips and getting them put onto YouTube for greater benefit. So do, inshallah, subscribe to that, share it share the love, people, share the love, and get it out there. Is the punishment of the grave like purgatory in Catholicism? So you pay for your sins. Actually, you see, this is the contradiction. Those who believe in the punishment of the grave do not say it's a wiping of your sins. They just say it's a suffering, which doesn't make much sense, because you're not allowed to be punished before you have judgment. And then some people say, well, maybe it's not an actual punishment, but it's just a fear, and then, which is a more kind of at least an understandable argument. Your part 6 of the Yaqub Chod, huh? Yaqub? What kind of a surname is that? Choud? Yeah, if I read that out, there's going to be another scandal. People are going to go, yaar, ye Mufti gaaliyan bahut deta hai yaar. Well, if I do, I do. You know, as it says on some of the rickshaws in Pakistan, it says, "Himmat hai to paas kar." Like if you either overtake me, ya bardasht kar, or just handle it, deal with it. That's all. So. فَلْيَضْحَكُوا قَلِيلًا وَلْيَبْكُوا كَثِيرًا. Somebody trying to tell us it's haram to laugh. No, that verse was talking about a specific... You see, this is it. When people misuse the Quran to control other people because they can't take other people being happy. So whenever people do this, what we ought to do is, in response to that, is to laugh. Right? Because first of all, you're trying to distort the word of God, because that's not what the Quran is speaking about. The Quran, they're speaking about those people and the akhirah and the afterlife. And it's not even, and speaking about the loss. And it's not speaking about in life general, you should be miserable, you should cry, you should go around crying. What's the point of that? What kind of a God just wants you to go around crying? That would be crazy. I'd be very emotional. I think you're worshipping. I don't think it's God you're worshipping. I think you've got hold of some of those Bollywood directors by mistake. So some of the emotional ones. Check kar liyo. Is it Allah or is it somebody else you're worshipping? So, people, Muhammad Wasim Khan. Oh, Mufti. Is that Mufti Sahib? Are you online? Adab, adab. People, Mufti Wasim is in the house. Ahlan wa sahlan. Those of you who don't know him should reach out to him, inshallah. Connect. Awesome Sheikh from America. Sheikh Khabbab Ahmad is in the house. Ahlan wa sahlan bikum. Ahlan wa sahlan. Spider-Man, G-Force. Should Muslims focus more on the divine love? Why not? I would say more than that even. Focus on human love. Huh? On humanity. On compassion. What does it mean to be a human being? Focus on that. That is what Islam came for. It's amazing, you know, we've, like, the real thing, the insaniya we've forgotten. And people today, why are you laughing? You should be crying. Oh, and we had, you know, people, such negative people. We had this, even with Sheikh Akram, by the way, we had these people, our good old friend, Mulvi Zamil, writing pages of a refutation against Sheikh Akram, saying he should be boycotted from attending a khatam on Dar al-Ulum. Come, I mean, for God's sake, get a life. People are inviting him, and he wrote this whole 4 pages, which I can't really go through now, but it would be worth seeing some points. He wrote these several pages saying, right, check this out, people. You know, I open this and I think, yeah, this WhatsApp and me have a long history. Well, anyway, those who know, know. The only way, this is Mufti Zamil. You know, Zamil in Arabic slang today means somebody who's gay in camp. Zamil. Zamil. Naughty. The only way to ensure success in this dunya and the akhirah, sounds like a tablighi jamaat behan, is by adhering to the deen. The Salaf have gone through great pains to ensure this deen is accurately preserved. So this is basically from the 19th century onwards, the Ummah has been ravaged by modernist thought. But when did Deoband begin? 19th century too? What, this one? Zamil, what do you say? Oh. Oh, Zamil. Zamil, Deoband ulama also, 19th century. This one not nice.